Next In.
I am Wes Nunley here with the Next In podcast, and I'm on today with Ashwin, Senior Director of Product Management and Data Integration at Precisely. Ashwin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's great to talk to you today, Wes. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great to talk to you as well, man. I'd love to open it up. You're a Senior Director, and you obviously didn't just start there in your career. So I'd love to open it up with just kind of your background, just really quickly, like how you even got into product management and then how you made it to that senior director level. Does that work for you?
That does. Happy to share that background. Yeah. So I kind of entered the product management space a little bit backwards, it feels, but the more I talk to people in this space, the more I see how many different paths there are into it. So my background is in engineering. I studied biomedical and then computer engineering. And coming out of school, got into a product support role at the company that used to be Precisely. It was called SyncSort, now Precisely, and had an engineering background, kind of had a vague idea around what can you do with such a background, but had this aha moment at one point while I was working as a support engineer around the fact that as an engineer, you're not necessarily limited to just engineering type activities. There's a lot of really interesting career paths you can go down. And I found my way into kind of a pre-sales role, which I really enjoyed, primarily because it was just very customer facing. And then I would say probably about a couple of years after I was working in pre-sales, I was thinking to myself, this is great. Like, I'm enjoying all the customer engagement, seeing what's out there in the market, but I feel like I don't quite have the business acumen to take my career forward. I knew I loved all the customer interaction. I liked understanding the market. I liked learning about new technologies, use cases, things of that nature. And so it was one of those things where I was looking to go to business school, and I actually had a conversation with my leadership, actually the CEO of my company, and he was talking to me about all these different opportunities that we had, and one of the things that he keyed in on was that we had an open role in our product management team. He's like, "Is that an interesting opportunity for you?" I was like, "That sounds amazing! Like, product management, you're kind of at the center of all of it." And so after that conversation, he connected me to the VP of product management at the time, and we started talking about the position, and lo and behold, a couple months later, I was in the chair. So that was how I got into it. I did not start my career thinking product management's where I want to be. I mean, right. I always loved product, but I didn't honestly know what product management was. And I still find it hard to articulate that sometimes, which is weird considering I live it day in and day out. But yeah, that's how I got there, right? And since then, I would say, just kind of working my way up to the senior director level has been really gratifying. Like, I got to work on a lot of interesting products, work through a couple of acquisitions and the acquisition strategy that falls out from it. And now I'm, working on launching a new, we announced our data integrity suite, which we're bringing to market. So one of the modules as part of that suite is kind of my baby that I've been working on with my team to build up. So it's been a really, really interesting journey. I can't say, 5 years ago, I would have seen myself being where I am today.
Right. No, that makes sense. I talk to a lot of product managers, and what I hear most often is like, I kind of fell into it. A door just kind of opened up. Especially folks I talk to who have been in it, people that are getting into it now, like today, this year, this month, there's programs now, right? You can go to school for product management. But if I talk to anyone who's been in product management over like 5 or 6 years, they did not get into it intentionally. And so it sounds like that's you as well.
Yeah, that is absolutely me. It's been fascinating to see the field grow too, right? Over just the past 5 years.
Yeah. So I did see where one of the products at Precisely is SyncSort. So it sounds like they retain that product and all of its integrity when you came on.
Yeah, so the company has a very interesting history, right? So it was founded in the late 1960s
Okay.
under the name Whitlow Computer Systems, if I remember correctly. And they basically put together this sorting algorithm for mainframe computers
Oh, wow.
because at the time, and it's still true to this day by and large, any sort of complex algorithm typically has some sorting on the back end, right?
Mhm.
To order it so you can search whatever. And so they put together this set of really, really powerful sorting algorithms and founded the company on this product that they called SyncSort at the time. And the basic idea was if you synchronize your different sort routines, you can get better performance. So that's where the name came from. So for a long time, the company went by that name, by SyncSort, and then I want to say almost 3 years ago now, we did a carve out acquisition of the software and data division of Pitney Bowes, and so that was a
Okay.
very big transformative acquisition for the company. And it was one of those things where it felt like, you know what, SyncSort doesn't describe who we are anymore. We've been very acquisitive over the past 5 years or so. And so we use that opportunity to really rebrand and relaunch the company and brand into the market under the Precisely name. But given the brand equity we had with a lot of those mainframe products, including the original SyncSort product, we retained that name under the kind of the original product line, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely there. I saw it listed at the product. Man,
Yeah.
I think it's awesome when you come across that company that's been around, because that's not, the '60s aren't new, right?
Yep.
But still has managed to stay ahead of the market, on the cutting edge. Because if someone's listening to this and they're like, oh, I want to know more about Precisely, and you go to the website or you go to Precisely's YouTube channel, there's nothing about it that conveys that it's old. And I think that's incredibly cool to
Yeah.
me. I think that's awesome. So for you in product, how have you managed to continuously up level your career? What would you attribute that to?
I think what I would attribute that to is just trying to find these new challenges, right? I know when I did step into the PM role, I definitely, actually, even if you step back from that, when I was a support engineer, one of the things that I remember was, I was on training like the first couple weeks on the job, and during that training session, I remember one of the engineers who was training me up was saying, yeah, you may occasionally get direct phone calls around some of these old products, but no one really uses them. So it's very low risk that you'll get like a call for one of these products. And then lo and behold, one of my early phone shifts, I get a customer call in and they're like, hey, I just purchased this product. Could you help me do X, Y, and Z? And I was just like, oh my God, this is terrifying.
No one purchases this product. Get off the phone.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why do you need help with this? And that was just like a little microcosm in the sense of like, putting the pressure on myself in that situation really helped me kind of unlock a new skill, right? And I think that has continued to be a common theme throughout my career, especially first time I started traveling for work, working with customers directly. There was a new set of skills I had to learn as it related to, hey, how do you address and speak to different audiences who have different biases, different sets of interests, and how do you give them a message that resonates with them, right? Like, and that's been the central thing that's helped me grow, because the more and more just working within a product, the thing that I found is it's very, very difficult to get buy-in from lots of disparate stakeholders, right? Everyone's got their own priorities, and rightly so. And like in product, you kind of sit at the center of all of this, right? Everyone's pulling in different directions. So I think it's been very important for me as I've grown in my career to get better at that skill, right? Taking kind of these different interests, summarizing them, using data to make a decision about, hey, what are we going to do? And then communicating that back out to these various sets of stakeholders. I think that's been one of the most important things that I've learned. And it's, a skill I'm continuing to hone and try to get better at. But I think that was one of those big enablers for me to kind of move up in my career, right?
Yeah.
that's honestly one of the toughest things, but one of the most impactful ones at the same time.
Yeah, one of the things that I hear frequently, and it sounds like that's the case with you too, is that part of the enjoyable aspect and that makes people gravitate towards product management, especially when they come from an engineering background, is that you do genuinely like people and talking to them, right? And getting like customer requirements and then translating that. So with you having an engineering background, do you find that helps you translate like what a client or a customer needs to what the engineering team can actually do and bring about?
Absolutely. I think it's one of those it's almost like a superpower at that point when
Yeah.
when you understand how the sausage is made, you understand like what are the subtleties of the technology. It does two things. Number one, it helps you from an outward perspective, helps you cut through, kind of figure out the difference between what your customers are telling you they want and what they actually want. Right.
Right.
That's one key thing that it helps with, because you can now start to understand what the challenges are that they're facing, and then maybe put forward a solution that they never even thought of before, right?
Yeah.
And then I think the other way in which it really helps is building credibility with your engineering team. I mean, product is not a one-person show, right? There's a lot of different people involved, and one of the big challenges is actually, you have this beautiful solution in mind, and then you start to translate to what can we actually deliver, what's technically possible, what's the technically correct decision, and then how do we potentially phase this in, right? It's important to get to market, get feedback early, iterate on it. And so I found that having that engineering background just really helped me from a credibility perspective with my engineering teams, where I'm not ashamed to kind of go up in front of them and be like, hey, I got this idea. Tell me I'm completely off base here, or what? And 9 times out of 10, it's not that I'm not completely off base. And in fact, there's something I might say or think through that triggers an idea in like one of my architects' heads, right? And then we'll start just kind of chatting about it. And so I think it's been helpful in that respect too. Really, it helps people get more comfortable with each other, because like, all right, we come from this background that's maybe somewhat similar or shared,
Right.
and we understand the realities of the situation. And it just really helps us work towards like what the right solution is for the problem that we've identified for the customer.
Yeah, it makes me think. I'm sure you've seen I'm a huge connoisseur of memes. I think it's one of the best things the internet's given us. But there's a meme that's circulated about product, and it's like client expectation, and it's like it's like a unicorn and like a meadow, and then it's like product promise, and then it's like a unicorn, a meadow, and like a waterfall, and it's like what engineering can do, and then it's just like a stick figure centaur.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up, because I saw like a very similar kind of, I don't know if it's a meme or just like a cartoon, but like someone shared that in like our Slack channel the other day. Yeah. And it was just like, it is such a good representation of what this space looks like. It's almost painful how much that resonates at times, and that's like the central challenge of the job as I see it sometimes. It's just, like I said before, you're just kind of sitting in the middle of all these different stakeholder interests, right? So it's one of the most difficult parts, but that's also a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. So when you look back on the products that you've led and that you've helped shape and build, what one are you most proud of? Like, what do you look back at this stage in your career and go, that one, like that's the one?
So I think one of the most compelling things I've actually worked on in product is what I referred to earlier today, which is around our data integrity suite. And the reason why I say that is, we talked a little bit about the company history, and I talked about the history of acquisitions that we've been doing, right? And we found ourselves in this really, really interesting spot where, we took a lot of really best-in-class technology, like the legacy SyncSort business had like really best-in-class integration services around as it relates to very complex mission critical enterprise environments. Think like the mainframe, mid-range AS400 servers. We acquired best-in-class data quality solutions and data governance tooling, and beyond that, location intelligence, spatial analytics, and data enrichment products. And the data integrity suite, which we announced last last month, I think, actually, has actually been the most exciting one, because we actually started the process of taking all these really differentiated products in the market, which we continue to support customers on today, service their needs with, but we took that core IP and we kind of re-architected it within a more modern offering, like a multi-tenant SaaS offering, which was a really, really exciting project for me for a couple different reasons. One, I felt like what I was launching was really filling a hole in the market, and I've actually seen a lot of other cloud native companies kind of extending into a similar space, which will be very fun to see play out. But then the other part too is it's just been an incredible learning opportunity, right? There is so much amazing people that we brought in, added to the team. And I've learned a lot, right, around industry best practices, lessons learned from people who kind of have those battle scars. So to me, this has actually been, of everything I've worked on, the most compelling, just kind of exciting thing, because not only is it a product transformation, but taking this business and reorienting it towards a SaaS first business means entire business transformation top to bottom, right? So there's a lot of opportunities to refine our processes, get more data as it relates to how customers use and get value out of our products, implementing product-led growth strategies, things of that nature, which it has been hugely exciting for me. So it may sound cliche to be like, oh yeah, the thing I'm working on right now is the most exciting thing, but I honestly, this is the one I'm most proud of, and I'm really, really excited to see our customers start to get value from it.
Yeah, I don't think that's cliche at all, man. I mean, I think if anybody looked at your LinkedIn and see they saw where you've progressed there and stayed there, I mean, clearly something's exciting you, right? I think that's just accurate, man. I think that's incredible. So what do you do outside of professional settings, man? I'm curious, what are your hobbies? What are you into?
So I got a couple different hobbies. So I've been into film for quite a while. I used to as a kid. I'm talking like when I was before college. I used to make short movies with friends and things like that. Which I've not done that in so long, so I can't claim to doing that for fun at this point. But big into film. I like to run. And what else? I also like to cook. I'm not the fastest cook. I'm definitely not the best cook. My family has some pretty good cooks, going through the years. But I really do enjoy it. It's become like a meditative thing. I'm very slow in the kitchen, but I kind of like just kind of going at my own pace. Trying out something new, and then mastering that, and then moving on to the next one. So yeah, those are some of the things I like to do. I also have a 1-year-old daughter now, so she takes up a lot of our free time. Yeah. But that's been a lot of fun. I know every parent who before we had her, every parent would be like, oh man, enjoy the free time while you got it. And they were not kidding. But it is the weirdest thing in that, it's a lot of work, but it is so amazingly gratifying, and it's the weirdest paradox you could imagine.
Yeah, I have 3. I can imagine.
Yeah. There awesome. You go.
That's awesome. So, is that running for you? Is that just kind of like for general fitness, or are you doing like half marathons and things like that? What does that look like for you?
So it's mostly the former, but I actually have done one half marathon. Nice. My wife and I ran it together back. It's been a while now. It was in 2019. So we went to Austin, Texas. Yeah. We did it there, which I remember after we ran it, the two of us were like, you know what? This is an amazing way to just book vacation, or book our travel, in the sense that we showed up. I have a really good friend who lives in Austin. When I told him I'd signed up, he was like, "Oh, great, I'll sign up too." And he's done a couple Ironman, so this was like
Oh,
his, he was like, "Oh, this is great. It's just like a morning run for
yeah.
me." But no, it was awesome. So we all kind of met up. The three of us ran together, and it was great just because we were able to. I'd never been to Austin before, so it was a good opportunity to just kind of run through a bunch of the different neighborhoods, right, for 13 miles or so. So I really enjoyed it. And one of the things we said, we were like, you know what, we should look at doing this more, more when we travel to new places, making excuses for myself now. I've not done one since.
Yeah.
I think with, COVID kicking in and then the baby, it's kind of, it's lower on the priority list right now. But I would say in the last couple of weeks, started like re-entering the running just for my health. We just actually got a running stroller to started using.
Nice.
It's working out pretty well.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, my best friend here in our agency, he just moved here from northern Nevada. I've not spent much time in that part of the country, but from what I understand, it's not very humid, and the seasons are nice. We're in Nashville, wherein the seasons are not nice. It's about 100% humidity and about 100 degrees outside. And he's getting ready for a half marathon, and a couple of weeks ago he gets on the elevator. And this was 2 weeks before summer, so a month ago he gets on the elevator and he goes, "Man," he said, "I just don't understand this humidity." He said, "I just run and I can't cool down. Like my sweat doesn't dry off of me." He's like, "This is miserable." And I just put my arm around his shoulder and I said, "Hey man, take heart. It's not even summertime." So yeah, I think that led to like some chronic depression, but I think he's gotten used to it.
I'm sure. I'm in New York, and the past week has been like 95, 96.
Yeah.
And actually on Monday it was still like, 88 with like 75% humidity. And my wife and I went for a run like right before we picked our daughter up from daycare. I sweat very easily. I was completely drenched, but it's like I'm so used to it now at this point because I've lived in New York my whole life that like this is kind of what I expect out of the summer. But it is brutal if you're not used to it.
Yeah, the humidity. I've spent some time in some pretty dry environments, and man, what people that haven't been in a really humid environment realize as soon as they get into one is like the way your body's supposed to work is I sweat. It dries off of me. It cools me down. You put yourself in a humid environment, and that is not the way that your body works.
It just sticks onto you, and it's like heavy.
Yeah. It's like running around in a plastic bag. It's terrible, man. It's terrible.
100%.
That's awesome. So look, circling back really quick. So to the movie, are you kind of a cinephile with that?
Yeah, you could say so. I mean, I've got some blind spots and all that, but it's a journey, right?
What's your favorite, man? Let's do favorite streaming series, favorite movie. Can we?
Okay.
Can you narrow it down, or is that too?
I can narrow it down. Well, yeah, I can narrow it down. Favorites like an echelon. So I feel like I'll pick some representative ones. So favorite movie. This like more classic choice, but would be Vertigo, which I huge fan of that movie. It was one of those movies. The first time I ever saw it, I was confused by it, and I didn't quite get it, and I was like, all right, but it was one of those movies. The movie is kind of about obsession, right? Like the core theme of the movie is about obsession. And then I noticed every time I rewatched it, it was just like watching a slightly different movie. There's these themes that pop out at you. There's these images that pop out at you. The score by Bernard Herrmann's just one of the all-time great scores. And it's just one of those movies I constantly find something new when I go back to watch it, right? It's very meditative. There's long sequences of no dialogue and just kind of these perspective shots and all that. So it's definitely up there for me. It's one of my favorite movies, or even my favorite on the depending on the day. Streaming series, I actually say so. For the longest time, Breaking Bad was my favorite TV show.
Yes.
And I still think that show is an absolute masterpiece. But I don't know if you have been watching its spinoff, Better Call Saul.
I watched the first. I don't know, where they on, like season 6 or 7 now, something like that.
They're on 6 now. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched the first 2 seasons and it was enjoyable. I don't actually know why we stopped, to be real with you.
I would highly, so that's kind of my current favorite right now.
Okay.
I think it's actually better than Breaking Bad, which might be a hot take.
I was about to say, that sounds like it could be controversial.
I'm sure it is, but there's definitely like a community of people now that have really, really latched onto it. And it's very different, right? I think it's interesting because you could have Breaking Bad fans watch this and be like, I'm not into it. It does not have that breakneck pace with like high tension shootouts. But then you could also have people who didn't like Breaking Bad because it was too intense for them, but would really, really like this show.
Right.
And then you have people like me who like both of them. It's very quirky. It's gripping. They managed to wring drama out of things that are like, that be so like the minutia of daily life. They can wring real drama. And it's really funny too. It's everything. It's funny. It's tense at times. It's a little bit emotionally painful. And they're doing some really interesting kind of experimental stuff now with these. They're in the home stretch of the series now. There's only like 3 episodes airing, and this past Monday's episode is like, I know the internet kind of, for people watching it, the internet blew up a little bit because there are people who like loved it or people who hated it, and I loved it. But so that's kind of my current favorite right now, at least.
No, that's awesome. Breaking Bad will forever and always be, I think, one of the best top shows of all time. The character arcs in Breaking Bad is just absurd.
Oh yeah,
like,
it's
mind blowing.
It's mind blowing to see that, like the transformation that the characters go on, and like and you buy it, right? Like every step of the way just makes sense, like logically. Like if I told you where it starts and where it ends, you'd be like, what? Like how? But like you watch it and it fits together. It's like a Swiss watch, It just like all the pieces fit together.
Right. Yeah. It makes you question your own moral compass, right? It's like you're watching it and he's like this nice chemistry teacher.
Yep.
And then as the viewer, you're like, I would never make meth. And then he gets into it, you're like, I get it, man. I would.
Yeah, you have to do that,
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. And then by the time you're reasoning that way and you get towards the end of it, you're like, well, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, it is pretty, what's the phrase? The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes,
like,
yes. That is like a case study of that expression.
Yes, exactly, 100%.
Oh man, yeah, that is an absolute great show.
Yes.
Well, look, I try to keep these to about that half hour, maybe 40-minute mark. Me personally, I get to about 40 minutes, and no matter how engaging something is, my attention span kind of dips. So to kind of bring it full circle, you're a senior director now. You've moved up well in the product space. If you could talk to yourself, I don't know, let's say 8-9 years ago, and give yourself career advice, what would you say to your past self?
I think I would say to not get caught up in the sunk cost fallacy. I think I spent a lot of time. I didn't dive into this before when we were talking about my background, but I spent a lot of time when I was younger thinking, all right, I think I want to go down the medicine route. And, I made decisions that would have put me on that route, but also give me enough latitude to pivot away to something else if I didn't want to go down the medicine route. And, spoiler alert, I didn't go down that route. And I think for a long time, I kind of thought, well, I've already, before I made the decision to step away, I kind of kept going down that path. I was like, well, I've already done this. I've done that prerequisite. So, why I've made this investment, like I can't step away from it now. And I think being beholden to that for longer than I should have prevented me from exploring other things that interested me at the time. Right. my brain works, I guess, in such a way that like I like to learn about like all these very different like unconnected things, and they just kind of help me think through stuff that may be related to work, right? But my point being, like, I think that I probably could have made other decisions earlier that would have maybe set me on this path, set me on this path earlier, or maybe even put me on a different one, right? I mean, I'm so happy working in product. I love being focused on great products. So, I'm extremely happy about that. But I would say that I'm sure there are other people out there who can get beholden to this kind of sunk cost fallacy, right? And I think it's important to take a step back and realize, what, sometimes the best decision is to pivot away, right? Pivot away and use the opportunity to do what's interesting to you. That's something that I was hung up on for a while, I think, and I've definitely been able to move past that since. But hopefully, if that helps someone else who's listening, then I've done my job.
Yeah, no, man, I would strongly second that. Like when I look, my background is super weird, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I've pivoted dozens of times. Like I came out of the military as an FBI intern, and I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a federal agent.
Wow.
Then turned to working in my dad owns his own business, worked with him for 2 years. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to own a family run, family operated, financial advising insurance business. And then I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. And then I became a recruiter, and then I got into tech recruiting, and it's fun, man. It makes life interesting because
it does.
I believe, if I remember your educational background right, you started in with a
biomedical engineering.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah. And you see what I'm doing now, like, what does that do? Biomedical engineering.
Yeah, at Columbia, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So it's it's interesting because having that, like, I don't think I knew that about your background, but like it gives you all these unique kind of unique experiences and perspectives into some things that you may be working on now, right? That others are just not going to share. So I think it's important to leverage that wherever possible too.
Yeah, I had someone. This person will remain nameless because it was as an executive recruiter, like this was a very poor attempt. But I had somebody reach out to try to recruit me, and their message said, "Your background is so strange that I just had to talk to you."
Oh, wow.
I was like, I'm not really sure.
How should I respond to this?
Is that good? And I think I just responded ? Like, and they're like, oh, I wanted to talk to you about this opportunity. I'm like, no, thanks.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah, we're good here. Man, so when you look at like your career, whether it's like generic career development or specific to product, what books or seminars or even podcasts have kind of helped you the most along the way?
So there's a book that we actually read for a recent leadership offsite that we've done. It's called Mindset. And one of the big things that we talked about was the growth mindset, right?
Carol Dweck.
Yeah, Carol Dweck's book.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting. It's resonated with me a lot recently. I think when I mentioned our SaaS transformation, as we're rolling out this data integrity suite, one of the things that I've learned, and I mentioned before, is like there's so much I don't know, and there's like different ways that you can choose to face those kinds of opportunities in front of you. Right? Number one, view it as an opportunity instead of like an obstacle or a challenge or whatever. But then number two, it kind of incentivizes figuring out, creative solutions to a problem, making do with what you might have within the constraints that you may find yourself operating within. And I think that kind of helped a lot, like more consciously thinking about that kind of a mindset was very helpful. And the other thing that I did recently that's been very helpful was we were part of a workshop where we did this thing. This is like almost like a personality assessment called the Print Survey. And if you've done I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, with the print, but if you've done say a Myers-Briggs personality test, right? Those are good at telling you about like who you are and where your tendencies lie, right? So in terms of, you know, you're extroverted, you're thinking, you're feeling, you're judging, whatever, but they don't give you a ton of insight into what do you respond to, and perhaps more importantly, what do others respond to, right? What kind of actions or events cause a person to respond positively or negatively? So they basically have taken, you know, they've, for everybody can be classified as, you know, basically 2 of these 9 different personality traits. So, you know, I think personality trait number, you basically have a major trait and a minor trait. The major is kind of the one that drives you, and the minor can like support realization or actualization of the major trait. And so, you know, one of them is to be perfect, right, correct. I think that's one of them. Another one is to live your life so that you're happy and that you have fun. Like there's another one around more or less empathy. And so, you know, we took that assessment, and you know, I think mine came out fairly right, or just felt right to me, which was, you know, I kind of live my life with my personality trait, my major personality trait being empathy, and then my supporting personality trait being to enjoy life and to have a good time. And so I thought that was fairly representative of me, especially given I really, really like people. I like working with people. I like talking to people. COVID was like, isolating during COVID was so difficult for me. I felt like there were so many of those relationships I wasn't able to kind of keep alive in the same way or get to know people in the same way. So I thought it was a fairly accurate assessment of myself. But what was really useful for me was that assessment also helps you identify like triggers that bring out some of your negative behaviors, right? And I think that was very, very helpful to me in that, you know, we're all so different from each other. We can't expect that we're going to be able to get through to people, you know, and communicate successfully with them if we leverage the same tactics for everybody. Because, you know, you might react to a certain stimulus in one way that's positive, and then, you know, a second person might react to that in like a negative way, right? So I thought it was really interesting because it reframes collaboration and teamwork and working together in the context of you know, delivering messages in the way people are most receptive to them. It sounds obvious when I say it like that, but I don't think it's something that I at least consciously thought about a lot day to day. And now I'm like, this is something I want to do with my team so that I can learn, hey, how do we better work together as a team, right? Like what do you respond to? What do you not respond to? I thought it was a helpful diagnostic in that regard.
No, that's awesome. I can even see how understanding how other people, other personalities respond to you would be very beneficial as a product leader.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like, one of the things my old boss used to say, and I've completely internalized this message. I you know, send it out within my team constantly, is in product, you are always selling. Like you are always selling. You are selling to customers. You're selling to prospects. You're selling to your leadership. You're selling to your teams and trying to motivate them and galvanize them around this vision, right? You're selling to various stakeholders. Like that is the one constant of this job. And to your point, right, having that kind of insight into how best to interact with other team members, hugely important for product.
Yeah, you're communicating with engineers, so you don't get a centaur instead of a unicorn.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Very different thing.
Figure centaurs over here.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So growth mindset, Carol Dweck. You'd recommend that?
Yeah, 100%.
Always a great book.
Yep.
And then avoiding the sunk cost fallacy. So just because I've sunk money or time into something doesn't mean it's a life sentence, and that's what I have to do forever.
Correct. You know, I think the best thing there too is, you know, even if you pivot away, there's probably a lot from those experiences that you can leverage and use to inform, to kind of inform what you do, right? I think the biggest challenge for me, just kind of growing up, was I didn't necessarily know the scope of what one could do with an engineering degree. I was like, all right, I study engineering, so I guess I'm going to be an engineer the rest of my life, which is horrendously limiting, right? And you can go down the path, become an engineer, and be like, you know what, you could really like engineering, or you could be like, you know what, I really like how this informs my ability to think and articulate strategy. Right? It's a different. It's using the same skills but applying them to this different context.
Yeah, I actually think one of the coolest things about the world of engineering is kind of once you get to that mid-level in your career, you really have that fork in the road. Do I want to become, senior staff principal and just stay in IC, or, do I want to manage people, lead people, and or the third split, go into product. I think the best product leaders, case in point with you, man, is someone who has an engineering background and can really communicate those expectations.
Yeah, again, learn how, deliver your message in a way that those different groups are going to be receptive to it, right? It's, the onus is on product to kind of articulate that. It's not anyone else's job but product.
Right. No, that's awesome, man. Well, look, we're at right at 40 minutes, Ashwin. I'd love to keep going, but I think that's a good place to leave it. And man, I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Yeah, likewise. I look forward to that too, Wes. This was a great conversation.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again. Maybe we could do part 2, and then we could debate whether or not that episode of Better Call Saul was good or bad.
Hey, there you go.
I can catch up to you.
There you go. Catch up, and we'll get back on here, and we'll chat about that.
Perfect. Hey, have a great day, man.
You too. Thanks, Wes. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Next day.